this guy walks into a bar. And he says, "Who's the strongest guy here?" And this real burly guy with leather and chains stands up and said, "I'm the strongest guy here." And the guy who asked said, "Would you come help me push my car to the gas station?" Now I got to tell one on myself. I had some challenges with everything from my hot water heater to my hot tub to my, oh, I don't know, I had all these challenges going on my washing machine. And so Dave Paulson, one of our Unity Santa Fe folks, is my plumber, and he came over, and my camper's in the garage, and it was going to need to be moved because I had to replace my hot water heater. So it was dead as a doornail. I couldn't start it. But fortunately, I have an electric battery charger, which, you know, I hadn't used in 20 years, but you keep these things just in case, all right, Kathleen? You keep these things just in case. So we plugged it in. He said, "Oh, no problem. It'll be fully charged by tomorrow morning. No problem when I bring it up." So the next morning, I get up bright and early to make sure I can move the camper before Dave arrives. Dead as a doornail. So Dave comes and I said, "Look, we're going to have to push the camper out of the garage because the battery didn't charge." And I said, "I don't know, do you think the battery needs to be replaced?" He said, "I'm a plumber, not a mechanic." So I said, "We can push it and then I can jump in and steer it." He said, "I'll push it. I'm the strongest one here. I'll push it." So he said, "Just get in there and put it in neutral." So I get in the car and I look down and I went, "It's in neutral." That's why it wouldn't start. So there's nothing wrong with the battery. So there's physical strength, there's mental strength. And so today, the intent and purpose that I have in this message is for us to call forth and develop our spiritual power of strength. And originally I was going to talk about faith, which is what I'm saying about faith, but that's okay, because our faith has to be strengthened. So all the 12 powers, there's always two that work together, and faith and strength work together. And so we want to make sure that we're not just working with any one power in isolation. So the human condition is that, I don't know about you, but a lot of times I put my faith and I rely on, for strength, things out there. You know, things on the rim, right? The rim of the hub that I talked about earlier. And I rely on myself. I rely on other people. And it doesn't always get me where I want to be in facing the challenges in life. So what we want to do instead, the spiritual solution, is FROG. Anybody know what FROG stands for?
Frequently rely on God.
Fully.
Fully.
You got it. So 80%. I give you a B. Okay. Okay. Fully rely on God. I wish I had little frogs. If I'd thought of it sooner, I'd have brought you all little frogs to remember to fully rely on God. And of course, when we say God, we're talking about our divine nature. That part of us that is one with all that is. That is our Christ consciousness, whatever name we want to give it. That's what we want to rely on in all the situations in our lives. Not just in the big ones, right? This one we remember, right? Oh, maybe I should have prayed. But it's in all those little situations as well, to fully rely on God. So, one of the stories in Scripture, in the Hebrew Scriptures, that is a the best story I know of regarding strength. What do you think it might be? Come on.
Samson and Delilah.
Yes, David and Goliath. Very good. Very good. So as you, those of you who've heard the story, know that the Israelites were, and the Philistines, not the Palestinians, the Philistines were at war. And at one point, they decided this big burly guy, David, decides that he's willing to take on any of the Israelites, one-on-one. And whoever wins, wins the war. And I want you just to listen to this description of him. So, his height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail. The weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. He had greaves of bronze on his legs and a javelin of bronze slung between his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spearhead weighed 600 shekels of iron, and his shield bearer went before him. Big guy, right? Really big guy. None of the Israelites wanted to fight this guy because they knew there was no way they would win. But there was this young shepherd named David. And David wasn't in the battle because he was too young. And so his job, the reason that he was out there near the battlefield, was he was taking provisions to his 2 older brothers. And so he heard this braggart, this guy, David, just really mocking the Israelites and putting them down and everything. And so David went to King Saul and said, I want to fight this guy. And King Saul said, you're kidding, right? I think it says something like that. Anyway, King Saul was like, you got to be kidding. And David says, no, I can do it. I can do it. Anyway, he convinced King Saul he could do it. So King Saul gave him all his armor. Well, David could hardly move with the armor. It was like this. So he took it all off, and he just took with him his slingshot and 5 smooth stones. And so that moment came in, and Goliath was like disgusted that they would even dare to send such a weakling to fight him. He was just disgusted. And but David said to Goliath, you come to me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come to you in the name. And anytime the Bible says in the name, it's talking about in the nature of. So I come to you in the nature of the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, whom you have defied. This very day, the Lord will deliver you into my hands. And all this assembly may know that the Lord does not save by sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into my hand. Okay? So, and like Goliath, right, sure, I hear you. Okay, now bear in mind that when it talks about the Lord, it's talking about divine strength. Okay, it's talking about, the Lord means it's the light of stability, courage, tenacity. Charles Fillmore, our co-founder of Unity, said that spiritual strength always overcomes the seemingly strong personal and material conditions. So anyway, so there's David, and with one small stone, he struck Goliath down. And then he went over to it and picked up his head by his hair, and Goliath said, lucky shot. That's not in here. Try it. So it didn't matter his physical strength. It wasn't about physical strength, but it was about that spiritual strength knowing that there was in him something greater than this giant, something that could overcome this giant with all of his weapons and armor and all of that. And that was the spiritual strength of his divine nature that, that carried him through that and made him victorious over it. So what about you? Where have you had to show spiritual strength in your life? Anybody want to share anything? A time that all the odds were against you, but you persevered because of strength, spiritual strength. Nobody going to share today? All right.
A job I had.
You have to speak into the microphone.
No, I can.
No. Trust me. Speak right into it.
Right into it. I've had more than one challenging job in my life, and my job's really important to me because I've been single, I have no children, and my job has always been a way that I've chosen to really try to do my best, and I've always enjoyed working with people, the people around me, so they kind of shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't invest in a job that much, but as a single person, you tend to do that. And in my career, as I progressed, I became a manager, but I've always had one other person above me, and some of them have not been very good managers, and it was devastating to me. Especially an individual, I couldn't figure out what they wanted. It's like, just tell me, I'll do it. You know, I want to be good, I want to be right. But there was nothing to be done correctly by me for this person. So, yeah, definitely I came to Brindleland. I prayed a lot. I projected love to this individual. I might even have told you this before. The other times have been in relationships when I've really been in love, and for one reason or another, they didn't work out. And today I've been with someone for 18 years who's just the dearest man, and I'm so glad that ultimately I got to him and not some of these other people that I fell in love with. So, you know, every bit of the way I've turned to God. And my life has been very good recently, so my prayers to God now are gratefulness for so much that we have in our community and in this country. And I could go on and on, but I won't, for the youth.
For the youth. Thank you. That's Debbie Bryant, one of our prayer chaplains. And you know, I remember when I worked for the Department of Defense Inspector General's office. I was on the Tiger team, and we investigated hotline complaints of fraud, waste, and abuse. And one of the complaints that I had to investigate was against the Assistant Chief of Staff of the Army, a 4-star general. And I remember, you know, being on the little shuttle bus between my office and the Pentagon, thinking, who am I to be interviewing, investigating this 4-star general? And so I was feeling a bit intimidated. And I had Unity magazine in my purse. And I was reading it, and somehow, and I ran across that scripture that he that is within me is greater than he that is in the world. And that was my mantra. The rest of the way on the little shuttle trip, and up the elevator and all of that to his office. And that gave me the strength, you know, within myself, to know that there was that power within me, my Christ consciousness, my divine nature, that is greater than anybody in the world. I don't care how many stars they have on their collar. And the interview went wonderfully. You know, the guy, you know, was absolutely upfront and truthful, and he had done what had been accused. He said, you know, where do I write the check? He was a wonderful wonderful person and owned his stuff. You know, what a model to own his stuff, because that takes strength too. That takes strength of character. And so there's all these situations in our lives, and the 12 powers, I gave you a handout again for today for, it says faith, small of the back, it's actually strength. So I didn't do my spell check. Okay, so this one is strength, and it's the small of the back, is where it's located in the body. So if there's times when we need strength, we can focus our attention and breathe as if we're breathing in and out through the small of the back. And as with all the 12 powers, we have these powers intellectually, we have them mentally, and then we have them at the optimum level, that level where we no longer have the power, we are the power in expression. And so I would invite us to affirm these levels of strength together. So non-resistance. Nothing has any power to make me resistant or fearful. I stand firm in my divine nature, God. The second level is relaxation. Together, I am relaxed mentally, physically, and spiritually. You know, we have to be relaxed in order to call on our strength. Otherwise, we're constricted and we're blocking our strength. Infilling. Together, I let the strength of my divine nature now flow into my mind and body. Direction. My strength grows daily as I follow my divine nature's direction in its right use. So I am strengthened when I listen to that still small voice. When I listen and do what I'm being urged to do. Incorporation. I incorporate ideas of God's strength into all I think, feel, say, and do all day long. So not just some of the time, but all of the time. Then the level of strength. I am strong in the Lord. And supremacy. I am one with infinite strength. And then there's some questions on the bottom of this that you can ask yourself, you know, when you are needing strength, when your faith is wavering and your faith needs strength, then you can, you know, these are just reminders. Am I fully relying on God, or am I relying on this situation to change, or this person to change? Do I really know that that divine in me is stronger and greater than whatever's in the world? And some other questions. So in prayer and meditation, which is our how-to every week here at Unity Santa Fe, in Isaiah 30, verse 15, we read, "In returning and rest you shall be saved. In quietness and in trust shall be your strength." So not in the verbose, braggart behavior of Goliath or whatever, but in quietness and trust. When we turn within and rest in the nature of our divine being, then we are saved from that situation that is challenging us. And Jesus maintained his strength by continually withdrawing from the crowds. You know, if you've read Christian scripture, he was continually withdrawing from the crowds, going apart in prayer. That's how he called forth and developed his strength. And that strength then applied to not only faith, but all the other 12 powers that we'll be talking about in the weeks ahead. So I celebrate that each one of us has an appreciation for this gift that has been given to us. It's our divine inheritance. All the 12 powers are our divine inheritance. And we have an opportunity, and I celebrate that. We have the courage and the wisdom to call forth this strength. Not just physically, not just mentally, but more importantly, spiritually. And as we call forth our strength and develop it spiritually, it will affect our physical and our mental strength. And let's begin doing this right now in a sacred time of shared prayer before our youth come join us. So I invite us to again become still, become quiet, and just allow our breath to move in us, through us, as us, without obstruction. Knowing that our divine nature, the Christ of our being, our Buddha nature, God, is right now breathing us. And we just allow that breath that God is to flow between the top of the head and the base of the spine. As we silently affirm, there is only one presence and power in the universe and in my life, my divine nature. Omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience. And now focus attention on the crown of the head, the superconscious level of mind, the Christ center. And silently affirm, Christ consciousness, my divine nature, is awakened in me. And next, move your attention to your forehead, the seat of the conscious level of mind. And silently affirm, I am aware that Christ consciousness is awakened in me. I am aware that Christ consciousness is awakened in me. And now move your attention to the solar plexus, the subconscious level of mind, and silently affirm, I am grateful that Christ consciousness is awakened in me. I am grateful that Christ consciousness is awakened in me. And now let your center of attention travel to the middle of the head, the pineal gland, the face center. And silently affirm, the Christ consciousness that I am awakens and calls forth my spiritual power of faith. I give no power to doubt and fear. The Christ consciousness that I am awakens the spiritual power of faith in me. I have unquestioned faith in God as my divine nature. And having called forth faith, now bring your attention to the small of the back and silently affirm, the Christ consciousness that I am awakens and calls forth my spiritual power of strength. I give no power to weakness, helplessness, or despair. The Christ consciousness in me awakens the spiritual power of strength. I am strong and courageous. And I allow the spiritual power of strength to awaken more fully as me in the silence. And as we gently bring our attention back to this time and place, silently affirm, I am awake to the power of strength. I am rooted in my divine nature, the source of my strength. I am spiritual strength, stable, courageous, and tenacious. Thank you, strength that I am. Thank you, thank you, thank you, that it is so, and so it is, and so I am. Amen.
Okay, thank you for bearing with us while we get set up. We've concluded our series of Star Wars lessons, and we've had a lot of fun in the process. The Star Wars movies are about a hero or heroine's journey from self-doubt to transformation through discovering and tapping into the Force. They focus on the battles between light and dark forces, but the battles are not just happening in outer space, they are part of the human experience. We all are, at one time or another, invited on a quest to bring into the light some undiscovered aspect of ourselves. And along the way, we find mentors and teachers who guide us and help us move through long-held ideas and beliefs that hold us back. We had lessons that focused on what gets in the way, the differences between truth with a capital T and truth with a lowercase t, and do we live in faith or fear? Throughout the series of lessons, we use the Star Wars movies as a backdrop for exploring Unity truth principles, and it's this connection between the movies and Unity teachings that the youth will share with you today. We'll first read a Unity principle, and then you'll hear some quotes from Luke and Yoda that speak to that principle. You'll hear Luke's self-doubt and Yoda's masterful guidance and sometimes scolding. So before we begin, though, I'd also like to remind everyone that we're holding a bake sale out in the foyer afterwards that will support the youth in traveling to retreats, so please come and support us, and thank you.
Oh, yeah, just click it.
Principle 1. God is the source and creator of all. God is all good, and active in everything, everywhere.
I can't do it. You want the impossible. It's too big.
Size matters not. Look at me. Judge me by my size, do you? And well, you should not, for my ally is the force, and a powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. It is an energy field created by all living things.
Principle 2. Principle 2. Human beings have a spark of divinity within them, the Christ Spirit within. The very essence is of God, and therefore they are also inherently good.
Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the force around you, everywhere, here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere. Yes, even between the land and the ship.
Principle 3. I create my experiences
By what I choose to think, feel, and believe.
I can't believe it.
And that is why you fail. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. If once you start down the dark path, forever it will dominate your destiny. Consume it you will.
Is the dark side stronger?
No, no, no. Quicker, easier, more seductive, not more powerful.
Principle 4. Through affirmative prayer and meditation, I connect with God and bring out all the good in my life.
Truly wonderful the mind of a child is. Clear your mind must be. Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. You will know the good from the bad. You are calm, at peace.
Principle 5. Knowing and understanding the laws of life, also called truth, are not enough. A person must also live the truth that he or she knows.
Master, moving stones around is one thing. Moving a spaceship is totally different.
No, no different. Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned.
All right, I'll give it a try.
No, no try. Do or do not. There is no try.
So, guided by divine wisdom, I soar to new heights of understanding. Woo!